after a long ride that I did a week or two ago, just doing an economy run test, I really started thinking about long-term ride comfort on this motorcycle. And in this position, and I'm just sitting here with my feet on the ground, this is really, really comfortable. But when I put my feet up onto the pegs, it gets a little bit more uncomfortable. It's still, quite doable, but it's a bit more, it's not as comfortable as sitting here like this. This is really, really comfortable. And I think it's a situation of foot peg placement, really. When my body's forward and my hands are forward like this, where I would really like the pegs to be is right about here. That would be really comfortable, and that's why when I'm sitting on the bike, just with my feet on the ground, it feels really comfortable because my feet are back. So to make this riding position comfortable, I would want my pegs back here. And I have thought about, some sort of setup where I've got a piece that extends out from this peg to support my heel, that I could just place my heel on. And I reckon that would make this riding position a lot more comfortable over the long term for me. And I have had a look at, Kuriakan have pegs for Harleys where they have a switchblade, I think it's called, where a piece swings out from the peg to support the heel. And something like that would be ideal, I reckon, for this riding position for me. I would find that really, really comfortable. But anyway, I started thinking about, okay, well, what's my other options for more comfort, for longer rides and for touring? And when I sit on the bike, like in a neutral position, when I first hop on this bike, this is a natural, neutral position for my upper body, and the handlebars are just out of reach for that. And I started thinking, well, where would my hands like to be if I was sitting back upright in this position? And I felt that this is probably a good spot right here, would be very comfortable, which is in line that if I'm leaning forward onto the bars and then I just sit back upright, my hands tend to come up to about here. So I started thinking about the Chief Bobber Mini or 5-inch rise handlebars that they have. So I went to the Indian motorcycle dealership in Ballarat and just sat on a Chief Bobber and felt the handlebars, but they were still too far forward for me. I still felt I was just reaching again for those bars. And then I thought, if you laid them back down, where would they be? But then, because they're only 5-inch rise, when they come down, then my hands start to become too low again. So I want to keep my hands up a bit. And so, long story short, Indian had a 30% off all accessories sale, Father's Day sale just recently. And I had a look on the Indian Motorcycle Accessory website and found a set of mini apes, which were, they say 8-inch rise. And I measured 8 inches from here to here. And I thought, actually, that's actually pretty good. 8 inches is not bad. So I bought those handlebars. And these are those bars. So these are the Indian genuine mini apes with an 8-inch rise. Now, when they said 8-inch rise, I thought they meant from the bottom, from the centre of the bottom piece to the centre of the top piece here. But no, it seems to be 8 inches measured here for the rise, because these measure about 10 inches in total height. And if we look at how they're going to roughly sit on the bike, I think I'm going to want them about there. That also feels pretty cool too. To have, ideally you'd want them in line with the forks, and I think when I fit them, I'll put them in line with the forks and just try that and see how it goes. That does still feel pretty comfortable. The test is going to be once I get my feet up on the peg, but that's going to be a bit tricky here. I'll try and balance. There, okay. So that feels much more comfortable, having my back more upright with my feet forward. When I'm leaning forward, I want my feet back, but when I'm in this position, that feels actually pretty comfortable, really comfortable, with the bars in that position right there. So yeah, I think this could be a good touring setup for me, but the test will be fitting the bars onto the bike. Now, to fit these bars, it's not a simple case of just unbolting those ones and bolting these ones on. I've got to buy a long cable kit, which comes with the internal wiring cables for throttle and all the switch controls, and also a longer brake hose and longer clutch cable. So all that has to be replaced. Now that kit's about 340 odd Australian dollars. So I've got to save up for that. So that's going to be, I'm just going to have to sort of do it in bits and pieces. Now the other thing is, I was worried that I might have to get a new left-hand grip or clutch side grip, because I didn't want to destroy the grip that's on here, getting it off to put onto this bike. But Mark did say that the grip on this side, it's actually got a little grub screw that holds it on. So, and I had a look on the diagram for the parts, OEM parts online, and it does show that grip has a little grub screw which seems to hold it on. So that would be ideal if I could just take the grip off this side and just slip it on here, and then that's done. That's one less thing I have to buy, because that's about $100 Australian to get that grip. To Indian's credit, when you buy accessories like this, they give you full instructions on how to install, including clutch cables and brake lines. Absolutely fantastic. I don't know if Harley do that, but Indian seem to do that with all their accessories, and that's just brilliant. All you do is just go onto the Indian Motorcycle website, put in the part number, and then you can download a PDF with full instructions on how to install. And Indian even does say that this should be done by the dealer, this installation, but to their credit, even though they say it should be done by the dealer, they still give you full instructions on how to do it if you're going to do it yourself. So for me, routing the cables is not a problem. Routing the clutch cable, putting a new clutch cable is not a problem. The tricky bit for me is going to be the brake hose. Now, the brake hose comes from the lever, goes down through a little restrainer here on the down tube of the frame, and comes into a block just here where they connect. The tricky bit's going to be for me is whether I need to, well, I'm going to have to bleed the brakes to a certain degree, at least this hose that goes from here to this block, but how much bleeding I'll need to do, I'll work it out as I go along. I'm going to have to buy a vacuum brake bleeder, because I looked online, they're about $30 on Amazon, and I have a compressor, so I can just use that. And this is the brake bleeder I'm looking at, and I think that will work quite well to do the job. And just how much, I'm just going to have to be careful, and I'm thinking in my mind what order I'm going to do things, and with the vacuum brake bleeder I can take the cap off the reservoir here, the brake fluid reservoir, and just vacuum out whatever fluid's in there, and then before I disconnect it here I might just take this whole grip end down low, so when I unhook it from, or maybe I'll unhook it first from the master cylinder, and then just take it down, drain out whatever brake fluid's going to come out of that hose, and then undo it at this point here. So anyway, I'm thinking about all this in my mind, about how I'm going to tackle this job, and I feel confident I can do it myself if I've got the right equipment, and the only equipment I'm going to need is that vacuum brake bleeder for about $30. Now the other part, this will be for me a two-part exercise for comfort. Number one being the bars, to get my hands and my upper body into a more comfortable riding position, and then number two will be a seat with a backrest, because I'm going to want, if I'm sitting back a bit, I'm going to want a backrest. From past experience and having bikes that have had backrests, it's definitely the way to go for me. So I think I'm looking at probably a Mustang seat, and I'll show you the Mustang seat I'm looking at. And just on Mustang seats, if you go to the website and put your bike into their bike finder on their homepage, the Chief doesn't show up. It's as if they don't make seats, and I just assumed they didn't make seats for the Indian Chief yet. But it turns out they do, and there's quite a good selection of seats for the Indian Chief that Mustang do make, and they look pretty good. And so I actually did contact them and let them know that, you know, when people go to their website, there's no mention of Indian Chief on their homepage. It just looks like they don't make seats for Indian Chiefs. They did get back to me and say they're going to update their website and get it sorted. And I had a look just recently, it's still not done. But yeah, if you are looking for a seat for an Indian Chief from Mustang, they do make them, and they make this touring option, which is about 13.5 inches wide. And they also make this square back, I think it's called, where it looks more like the Saddleman step-up seat, but obviously Mustang's take on it. Now, I did consider the Saddleman step-up seat, but I don't think it's wide enough for me for the sort of riding I want to do. I like from past experience, I know I like a wider seat, and the Saddleman's about 11.5 inches, and the touring Mustang seat's 13.5 inches. I know the 13.5 inch seat is going to be a better option for me. Like I say, I've got to save up, and I'll be covering this on the Patreon, because I'm going to be using Patreon money to try and buy components. So the more people I get signing up to Patreon, the quicker I can do it. And so I'm going to be relying on you guys to help me out, basically. So to all the Patreon supporters I already have, thank you so much for your support. It's absolutely fantastic. You are legends, and you are helping to keep the channel going, which is brilliant. To everybody else, as always, thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for sharing the videos. You're also legends as well, so thank you. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching this video, and until next time, bye for now. Oh, here's a couple of other videos you might be interested in watching as well. See ya.